Welcome to the Bad Tutors podcast. If you're here for the newest, up-to-date, accurate information on the nerdy topics that are near and dear to your heart, well, let me tell you, you ended up in the wrong place. Here, we're all about hot takes and grandiose displays of misinformation, so stick along for the ride, and you might just blow a blood vessel or two. So recently, after Gen Con, I made a very offhanded proposed idea of running an SCP themed one-shot for our weekly D&D group. Just saying, I enjoy SCP. I think it'd be a fun way to get to play this new TTRPG that I picked up, and clearly looking forward at our script, I did not understand what I was getting into when I said this, because Ian took us deep into SCP on this episode. So to get the general overview of the episode, today we're going to be covering SCP at a very broad overview, both in the meta sense of the foundation and the real world sense of what it is and where it came from. This will be our take on an overview guide from a non-in-lore standpoint, meaning we are outside looking at the website and SCP. Part of the charm of SCP, in our opinion, is the confusion that surrounds it. When Ian first looked into it, he was going on a recommendation of some friends. He had a lot of questions and was thrown into the spiral of figuring out, why things are the way they are in this world, as well as just trying to decode some of the language that is used when talking about SCP. Starting off, we'll look at the out-of-canon information about SCP, such as where it came from and what it's quote-unquote about. So, Ian, what is SCP?
Yeah, so SCP in the world stands for Secure, Contain, and Protect. In this world that has been created by people around the internet, the SCP Foundation is a fictional organization created for the sake of containing anomalies and, in general, protecting the public from just absolute destruction and hysteria that any of these anomalies could cause. So the next question would be, where did SCP come from? How did it originate? And that's kind of like a really good question to get a feel for the topic on whole, because as most weird internet things, unfortunately it came from 4chan. It was around 2007 on the /X forum. I don't remember.
We were too young for 4chan
nomenclature. Yeah, especially in 2007. Where the original SCP, SCP-173, was created. That's a really good starting off point to feel like what it started as and the kind of ideas that people kind of had at the beginning. A second question that I want to dive into that, as Tyler said, he really got in a little bit over his head when he brought up that he was somewhat mildly interested in SCP. But the real question that I have is, what is the point? Why is this? Why do people keep up with this? Why is it something that people get interested in? And the real answer is that realistically, there isn't one. This isn't a universe that has broad overarching stories or has a lot of through lines necessarily. There certainly are things that are very related to each other and tied in, and there is somewhat of a generally accepted canon around a lot of things. But when you get down to it, SCP can really just be boiled down into a bunch of creepypasta-esque fan fiction. If you don't get me wrong, that's going you are going bare bones onto what this really comes down to.
It's a bit diminutive.
Exactly. I personally like to think it's a lot more than that. Obviously, I have 9 pages in this goddamn script. Clearly, I care about this a lot. It's something that I am very invested in. So yeah, it's a little reductive to call it something like that. But getting on it, even though I said there are some like through lines and some things that stay consistent of like how things operate, there is no like concrete, there isn't like a company made set out, this is what X thing is, this is how X thing operates. This was based in 4chan to start, so like there isn't one of those. People kind of have similar ideas that like when you're writing them, there are guidelines on the SCP website of like don't go insane and like have like writing notes of like what certain things do and like what is within the ramifications of things. But like realistically, if you and I just like write some shit and call it an SCP, would everyone in the community accept it? No, not necessarily, but like a lot of people still would. And like, isn't that basically canon at this point? That's like kind of like how this operates, which is very, very interesting to me. I really like that just like natural growth and progression of things. A lot of it is like based on that, and there isn't a lot of it. It's just commonly accepted ideas, which is why I kind of compared it to a fan fiction, or more specifically an AU or an alternate universe fan fiction, where like everything does take place on our Earth, technically, all of our normal countries and everything, but there's just anomalies and stuff. There are different things that differentiate our current Earth from what SCP takes place in. So, as you can probably gather from those statements, that makes it so this episode was a little fucking really tough to write, as I myself have consumed hundreds of hours of SCP content since I first got into it, and a lot of it conflicts with things written in the wiki, as well as YouTube channels will conflict with each other, and any like different blogs and things conflict with other blogs because there isn't this hard and fast lore. So there are some things that like I vaguely remember, but as I look it up, I can't actually find the source. But if I were to write it like that, who's, like I said, who's to say that this doesn't then become canon? It could, and that's just such an interesting space to be in. And like I feel like there aren't a lot of other fandoms and like canons that like kind of go along those lines, and it's just such a fun space to be a part of.
I would agree.
Yeah, it just kind of gives people a sense that like they're contributing to the things that they love, and like you can actually make like a real lore change. Like your fucking Pokemon fanfic is not going to be Nintendo canon, but like if enough people like your SCP, it fucking might be, and that's really cool. That's like very dynamic.
Your character could be dragged into another SCP.
Exactly.
I just want to try and summarize what an SCP, like what the entire project, I guess, of SCP is, not what. So this is the issue about talking about SCPs, is that there's like the very meta conversation about like the forums themselves, and to me, what I think of as the forums is just a bunch of people working together to write esoteric horror as a genre. There's some that are definitely terrifying. There are some that are just weird. There are some that are quirky, but all of them have like this sort of idea that there's information out there that you don't know. There's things that could be getting covered up by something like this, and that is sort of like the entire forum. It's the entire point, is like everybody is writing towards something that they find interesting, and it's like this esoteric horror. So that's sort of like, that's what I think the point is behind SCP, is everybody's contributing to knowing the unknown of this alternate universe sort of thing. That it's hard to generalize the entirety of it if you don't know a lot about it.
It really is, and that was kind of my idea with writing this. What is our goal? Why are we doing this? When I started looking into SCP stuff, there were not as many like video guides of like breaking down this kind of stuff as we're going to in this episode, but there certainly are now. So I want to do this is to have an introduction to SCP so it's easier to get into for people. There's a lot of fucking jargon and just big concepts that, like, when you're listening to videos are the SCP entries. There's a lot of stuff where you're just gonna go, wait, I'm sorry, what the fuck is this? And don't get me wrong, the SCP wiki, the official one, obviously has all of this broken down, but like, it's a lot of reading, and I don't always like reading. Sometimes I like listening to things, or most of the time I like listening to things. So I wanted to have like kind of my idea of a formative, very entry level baseline guide for people to listen to and just get what they need to know to like start consuming SCP. And then if they enjoy it after that and think it sounds fun, then you can just go dive in and do whatever you want with that. So this will be just like some kind of key details and like a lot of, this might listen a little bit like a textbook as I'm kind of going into certain things with this, but like this should all be like, my goal is very baseline concepts that we're working
this
on.
episode is sort of like a primer for SCP, because all SCPs are written as though you know what an SCP is, and you know what containment class is, the levels of confidentiality, the personnel classification. There is no like SCP primer. There's not anything like on like the wiki or anything like that just tells you like, this is the world, these are all the things that are in it, these are the things that happen. It's just sort of, or at least when it started, it was just sort of expanded on, and that's kind of like the beauty of it, right? Is like, it's just like a project that everybody's worked on, and like they've built up this like the actual foundation and all that stuff, as we'll see.
So that'll lead into, I suppose, what is the format of these? We're talking a lot about the wiki and like how things are formatted. You need to, it's written from the perspective of like, you kind of already know what's going on. So how are these actually written? And as I said before, this is a really strange question, but when you look over the wiki, it makes a lot more sense, because you go into an SCP entry and a lot of the information will be completely blacked out or just redacted, or some of them you'll look it up and you'll be looking at a list. They're all numbered, as we've kind of hinted at: SCP 173, SCP 682, SCP 3008. Some of them are just SCP dash blocked out text. There's nothing there. So what these are written as is almost like scientific research, or like more, I suppose more specifically, like government logs, where things will be very heavily redacted. You'll have like what happened, but you won't have things such as like your prominent locations, your times, the doctors and researchers that are performing these experiments. Their names aren't going to be there, except for like, of course, a couple like high ranking ones that like people use as a basis to write a lot of things off of. And that, as well as just like the community driven, community built fashion of this, gives like a certain mystique to all of this. Because like, yeah, you know what's going on, but like, do you know what's going on? And it also gives a lot of like fill in the blanks of like, you can kind of decide how some of this played out. Maybe the back half of an experiment has been completely redacted, so you know all of the setup and everything, but you don't actually know how it turned out. So that just gives the internet grounds to like come up with their own endings and figure out how they think everything ended, which is, as I said, just like such a cool idea and a very fun way to tackle lore, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the way that they're written, there are parts where it's like redacted for people's protection, like similar to like a like how a search warrant is released to the public, or not a search warrant,
an affidavit.
Yes, yeah. So like if the executive branch of our government has to release some things about why they were able to seize assets or something like that of someone, when you go through those documents, there are redacted things. Those are usually people's names, like an informant who gave up this information, and those people's names obviously aren't safe to be released to the public. That happens a lot in SCP, but there's also sometimes where it's not. It's like very clearly not those things in context clues. And that's where sort of like the horror comes through, is like there's just like Ian said, there's just huge blocks of redacted text that like start off with, like a leading sentence about like, do not ever allow this SCP to have, and then it's just redacted for like 7 sentences. Redaction is a tool in the storytelling of SCPs, so it's pretty cool in that sense.
So if you're like me and you look up YouTube videos about this, you're going to find 2 different kinds of YouTubers. You're going to find people that are doing how we are aiming to tackle this episode of, we are telling you all of this information outside of the in-world canon of SCP. We will not be talking as if SCP, the Foundation, actually exists in our world. We will be talking about it as the pseudo fanfic mystery horror that we actually know in our world. That's probably like half of the videos, but there are a good number of channels as well that are telling you all of this information as though it is coming directly from the Foundation itself. So they'll be telling you the story, and then there will just be dead air or static, indicating that kind of redacted information. And those are like your 2 kind of big different formats of this, which is, again, kind of framing how we're looking to tackle this. So, with all of that out of the way, let's actually get into the world of SCP itself. In this next section, there is going to be a lot of jargon and terms, to me at least, that meant absolutely fucking nothing when I first started looking into this, but it is what fueled my like kind of initial binge into it of like trying to figure out what all of this meant. So some of them might not be covered immediately as I'm reading through, but if I did my job well enough in writing this script, hopefully by the end of this, it will all make sense. That's the goal. So to start out, we're going to talk about the Foundation itself, the SCP Foundation. Starting with the initial history, the SCP Foundation was created by a man named Aaron Siegel. This is the common understanding. In 1891, Siegel was heavily involved in the occult and researching it, and discovered the Gate Guardian, which is what we would think of is actually the angel that protects the Garden of Eden, which in the SCP universe is located directly between the Tigris and Euphrates River, exactly where they meet. When he discovered the Gate Guardian, it simply told him protect. And from there, he just disappeared from all forms of public record. A lot of people speculate that this was then the official founding of the Foundation itself. Now, as we were talking about before, this is not the only theory on the founding of the SCP Foundation. But from what I have been able to put together, it is the most common one that people use. It's the most like widely accepted, and then the other ones are like the hey, but actually this happened type of thing. So that is the one that we will be sticking with and building off of from there, where Aaron Siegel has heard from the Guardian of the Garden of Eden, protect, and created the SCP Foundation.
Yeah, my understanding as well is that this is generally the accepted sort of beginning of the Foundation, and all the other ones are like fun speculation. You know, sort of. It's weird to say conspiracy theories when we're talking about SCP, but like those are conspiracy theories within SCP.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, the Guardian, is sort of widely accepted as like the first interaction with SCP.
Which, in that regard, it can also be considered SCP-001, but that like super depends. That one is a lot less.
Yeah.
Accepted.
Yes.
But in this history that we would be laying out, one would speculate that that would mean the Gate Guardian would be SCP-001. I'm not willing to back that statement because personally I have an SCP-001 that I think is more fun.
I hope it's the one that I like. Okay, continuing.
I hope it is too. But From there, we will move into the actual hierarchy of how the SCP Foundation functions. Now, this can be broken down into 3 different categories. One is a general confidentiality level. This goes from 1 to 5. A personnel classing going from A to E, and just kind of your like more generic staff titles. And any given person can and probably does have all 3 of these somewhere associated with them. So first, tackling confidentiality, going from 0 to 5, like I said. From what I understand, a couple of them are not what we would find in like our standard government's confidentiality. So starting, just to read them all off first, we have level 1, which is confidential, level 2, restricted, level 3, secret, level 4, top secret, and level 5 is thaumiel, which you would not find, to my knowledge at least, I suppose I don't have the clearance, in our actual governments that exist in the real world. So, confidential. This is given to those working in a proximity, not dealing with or indirectly with any anomalous objects. So, you're probably in a facility, but you might not be like actually doing anything with them. Level 2, restricted, is given to those who require direct access to anomalous materials and entities. This is like going to be your most common one. This is for researchers, field agents, and your containment specialists. Level 3, secret. This is going to be given to senior staff and research personnel that are looking at like long-term plans and like in-depth planning for the Foundation. You're going to be giving this to senior staff and senior managers in like response team and mobile task force operatives, which are like your kind of like spec ops in the world. There's like a level above that as well, but like that's like your general like shit's fucked up, you go to these guys. That's going to be your secret. Top secret is given to senior admin that require information for site-wide or regional intelligence. So this is going to be held by site directors, security directors, and mobile task force commanders. So like, say there's 15 SCP sites. I don't actually know how many there are, but say there's 15, there's probably going to be like 20 people with top secret clearance in that case, because only almost the highest level people are going to get it. And the final level, thaumiel, is the highest possible clearance rating or ranking. This is basically unlimited access to any information that anyone could want at the Foundation. And this is only given to the O5 Council, who we will get into, and certain, air quotes, selected staff, which means my OC self-insert might have thaumiel access. But the O5 Council is a group of people that no one knows the real name of or any identification at all, and they are the ones that actually run the SCP Foundation. Kind of like an Illuminati is a bad comparison, because I believe the Illuminati exists as a separate entity in the SCP world, but that's a whole nother fucking conversation. But that's your 5 confidentiality rankings. Any questions, class?
No, I think that's a pretty good breakdown. The one thing that I'll say is for the level 0, you said it's sort of like a pseudo clearance, but it's like clerics and janitors have this clearance. So
I'm gonna correct that to clerical, not.
I'm sorry. I played D&D today. I played D&D today. I was down for hours. I thought, man, I could really use a cleric right now, but
yeah, that would be for clerical and janitorial positions. So like literally the people that are mopping the floors, but should realistically not know a single fucking thing about anything that's actually going on. Yeah. From there, we will move on to the personnel classifications. This, as I said, is A through E. All of these will have what to do if there is an emergency at any site. Starting with Class A, this is personnel deemed essential to the Foundation's strategic operations. They should still not be allowed any contact with anything anomalous. And if they are required to be housed in the same site as any anomalous things, they should not have any access to any of the containment facilities of anything anomalous at all. If there is an emergency, any Class A personnel should be evacuated immediately to a safe off-site location. O5 council members are always considered A-class personnel. So these are people that nothing bad can happen to. This is very important people. I believe site directors fall under this. I might contradict myself in a moment, but I don't believe I will. So you're very important people, Class A. Class B is people essential to local operations. They can be granted access to anything anomalous that has passed quarantine and have been cleared of any mind-affecting or mimetic agents. So in an emergency, they should be taken to a safe off-site location as soon as possible. Class C, they are given direct access to most anomalies not deemed hostile or dangerous. If a Class C has been exposed to anything mind-affecting or mimetic, which is memory altering specifically. It's also like kind of just a weird term that they use. I believe I have it further down. They must undergo a mandatory quarantine period and psychiatric evaluation as necessary until they are deemed okay to resume their duties. In any kind of an emergency, they should seek secure lockdown area or to be evacuated at the discretion of on-site security. So if you have time to get Class C off, maybe get them off-site, but like, if not, maybe just like kind of make sure they have a safe location to go to. Class D is where we get into the kind of fucked up ideas of SCP. These are your expendable personnel. If you hear a D class or a Class D personnel, they are allowed to handle extremely hazardous anomalies. And they are not permitted to, what they are not permitted to come into contact with is Class A and B personnel. Now, you're thinking, oh, that seems like a very dangerous job. Where are we going to find these people? Well, don't worry. We're going to take them from death row, from across the world. A lot of death row inmates mysteriously disappear and end up in SCP foundations as D-class personnel. Certainly, or I believe technically a lot of them are given a choice of sitting on death row or joining mysterious shadow organization. So, you know, like you might have fun at one of those two places. But, you know, it's not the best, especially when we get into it a little bit more. They are given mandatory psychiatric evaluations and are to be administered an amnestic of at least Class B strength, or just, you know, be terminated at the end of each month at the discretion of on-site security, or the medical staff as well. In the event of an emergency, D-class personnel should be terminated unless deemed necessary by security. Also, something to note, in times of duress, Protocol 12 can be enacted, which allows the Foundation to draw outside of death row, you know, taking the logical next step of like your political prisoners, refugees, and just civilians if necessary. So it's super fun stuff. Really, this is like the morally, I want to say morally gray, but I don't even know if that is.
Yeah, let's not try and get into the morals of the Foundation.
Yeah, we're here for fun, not for the morality of this topic. The final class, Class E. This is a temporary classification that is applied to field agents and containment personnel that have been exposed to something potentially dangerous, something that might contaminate other people or something like that. This is especially common when securing a new anomaly. All Class E really says is that they should be quarantined and given your standard observation period, psych evaluations, things like that. And after they have been cleared and debriefed by psychiatric and medical staff, they may return to duty as normal. People don't hold the Class E title for a long time. It is just used as an intermediary when you're possibly contaminated with things. Again, class, any questions? That one was certainly a little bit more involved than just clearance levels.
I mean, I understand it, but I have a pretty good understanding of SCP as a casual enjoyer. So just to sum it up, Class A, super important people. When shit hits the fan, they are the priority to become safe. Class B are going to be people that are like leading these sort of investigations into SCPs, especially new SCPs and stuff like that, handling tests and whatnot. Also important people, they need to be taken to a secure, hopefully off-site location. Class C is lower on the rung of Foundation members, but this sort of class of personnel is not expendable, but what would be the equivalent of a foot soldier. Class D is expendable.
Correct. Yep.
The Foundation views them as like undesirables of the world, and is in their mind using them for good, if that's an accurate summarization.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And then Class E is like just a temporary thing. You can think of Class E as E for examined. This class needs to be examined because they were present for something that the Foundation knows nothing about, and they need to make sure everything's okay with them before they can return to normal duties.
That sounds exactly right to me.
All right, let's get to the staff titles.
Yep. These ones are... We should be able to go through them a little bit quicker. These are like... I feel like pretty common as to what you'd find in the real world.
The title speaks for itself, usually.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I might give a couple, like, bullet points on some of these, but, like, in general, that it should make sense. So, we do have this broken down into 3 different sections of site staff, field personnel, and administration. The administration is where it's going to get a little heavier into what some of them mean. But we'll start off with site staff. These will be anyone held within and more than likely housed within an SCP Foundation site where anything is held. So we have, just to start, read them all off: containment specialists, researchers, security officers, and a tactical response officer. In my mind, please correct me if I'm wrong, the only one I'm going to give anything on there is a tactical response officer, because I feel like the rest of those all kind of make sense on their own.
Yeah.
So what a tactical response officer is they are, as you kind of mentioned, a foot soldier. These are essentially the, air quotes, military for the Foundation. They are highly trained and heavily armed, and they can escort containment teams where they need to go whenever necessary, as well as, say there's a containment breach. They will be reacting to this. They'll be the first to react to those kind of things.
This is... to reiterate, this is an on-staff armed force, or on-staff,
correct.
On-site armed force.
Yes, these will be housed and can be called upon at any point. I'd say snap of a finger, but realistically press of a button, and they will be there for you. Moving next to our field personnel. We have just 2 here, 2 main ones. We have field agents and your mobile task force operatives. Just a couple things about both of them. The field agents, they work as the eyes and ears of the Foundation. These are people that are going to be in, say, oh god, what's the word? Like 911 operators. They're going to be medical staff. They're going to be law enforcement. And they are just doing their job as they would, but they are also trained to look out for any kind of anomalous activity and anything that doesn't seem normal, and then they will report it to the SCP Foundation. They are not at all equipped or trained to go deal with it, simply to identify and report it. That is all they do. Mobile task force operatives kind of have a much more wide variety of things. They can They can they can work as field agents. They can work as containment. They are drawn from the veteran personnel from just kind of all across the Foundation. They can do a lot of different things. There isn't like a set thing they can do, but it is important to bring up just kind of that they exist.
So they're like a floater in the restaurant industry.
Exactly. Yeah, they can kind of do it all when they have to.
They'll hit the kitchen, they'll hit front of house, they'll be at the bar, whatever they need to do, except they're not dealing with customers, they're dealing with anomalies and potentially dangerous things.
Correct. That's a very good analogy for that, yeah. Next we have administration, which again will just have two things. We will have a site director and an O5 council member. A site director is kind of like we said, it's what you would assume. It is someone that oversees an SCP Foundation site and makes sure it runs smoothly and has as little issues as possible, no containment breaches, stuff like that. These are the only people that are going to report directly to the O5 Council. So what is the O5 Council? These are the highest ranking directors of the SCP Foundation. All of them are completely confidential. Not even they know each other's real names. They go by and are referred to only by a numeric designation, such as O5-1 through O5-13. All of them have complete access to all of the information in the Foundation, and they oversee worldwide operations, like setting long-term goals and strategic plans. As we're going to get into, some SCPs are kind of just a clock until they end the world. Realistically, like there are a good number of them that are that way, just like, hey, eventually they're going to destroy the world. Make sure we have as much damage control as possible. That's what the O5 council members are going to be dealing with. As I said, they are not allowed to come into contact with any anomalous object, entity, or phenomenons. Any questions or anything you'd like to add to that? That's like a lot more ambiguous, but like that's
the point.
Yeah, I'd say exactly. The O5 Council will certainly come up when you're reading about it or like getting into it a little bit more. So next we'll move into object classes, which, I believe I missed something up at the top. Just to answer a kind of more general question, what is an SCP? We've been talking for 40 minutes about SCPs and a bunch of things about it. What the fuck is an SCP is a pretty good question. We've been talking about anomalies and anomalous things. Realistically, when you come down to it, when the Foundation finds and contains an anomaly, it is referred to as an SCP. This could be, and they can be a lot of different things. We're going to get into a couple of these, especially the two that I'm going to mention right now. But just for names alone, these can range from things as SCP-682, one of the most common ones, the Unkillable Lizard, to SCP-3008, the Infinite IKEA. So, like, clearly even in name, these can be pretty fucking different. Like, there's a big range, like, even when I was just looking through, like, there's at bare minimum, and there's definitely more, like, 7,000 SCP entries in the wiki. So, like, there's just so much to take into account when you're, like, looking at these.
Yeah, so an SCP is something that behaves outside of the way something is expected to behave. Like, a lizard is supposed to be killable, and an IKEA is supposed to have
it's supposed to be finite
bounds. Yeah. Yeah, finite. Yeah, it's supposed to have boundaries and such. There's a door that you go in, and then you can walk to the back wall of the building
and then walk out that same front door and leave.
Yeah,
that is how we would expect things to work in our world. So anything that
doesn't, yes, it's classified as an SCP. Yeah.
So all of these things have what are referred to as object classes. Now these are used to differentiate. It's very important to point out, especially as I get into these do not indicate or designate the danger that an entity poses, but how difficult it is to contain. And I say that that is very important because it is something that I definitely got mixed up when I first started getting into this. And it can be a little confusing to me because the first one we're going to talk about is called the safe class. And the other one that is harder to contain is called Keter, which sounds kind of scary. So, like, it makes you think it's dangerous. And a lot of Keter SCPs are very dangerous, but that is not inherently true. It is simply how difficult and how much resources are required to contain the SCP.
Yeah, I think the object classes is one of the more difficult things to sort of understand, and in reality, like what we just talked about with the staff titles and the confidentiality and personnel classifications, all of that stuff you need to understand, including object classes, to sort of like actually sort of get a grip on how dangerous an SCP or an anomaly can be.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to be going through 7 object classes. This is, as we've said, just to get a full picture of how all of SCP kind of plays out. If you're just casually going through and learning about this, you're really only going to need to know the first 3. Those are the most important ones. That's what most of the SCPs fall under, but I am just going to give a brief definition of all of them just to be thorough in this. So we're going to start out, as I said, with safe. These are easily and safely contained anomalies, meaning containment does not require a significant amount of resources or require any like specific or conscious activation. These are usually fairly well researched by the Foundation as well, since you would have to have a good amount of information on them to know how to properly contain them. And as I said, just because it is safe does not mean that it does not pose a threat. There are safe SCPs that could still fuck your shit up really easily. Like that does not mean that they are not dangerous. It just means that the likelihood of them breaking out and fucking your shit up is very low because it's not hard to contain them.
Yeah, I would say the Foundation might classify a nuclear warhead as a safe object class.
Yeah, correct.
Because very, quote unquote, easy to contain. They're just in the possession of the Foundation, and like it's not trying to break out of its own confinement. So that's a safe object class. But nobody's going to look at a nuclear warhead and say
that's a safe object.
That's a safe object.
Exactly. Yeah. Again,
this is another
comparison.
This is where confusion comes in the most, because like you'll hear stuff like this be called safe, and
you go, that's not, I don't know if I'd call that safe. That's a little weird. So your next object class is Euclid. Now this is going to be requiring more resources to contain, or the containment is always reliable. Not foolproof, but reliable. You're not really going to have to worry about them. Now, another part of this is the SCPs in this bracket are generally insufficiently understood or possibly inherently unpredictable. Now, this is going to mean that any SCP that is autonomous, sentient, or sapient is generally going to be classified as Euclid, which means that a lot of SCPs are going to be classified as Euclid. So it's the classification with the greatest scope. So there's going to be just like a lot of the widest range of variability in this class, I would say. 2 examples on this one that I have are one of them being the Infinite IKEA. It is very unpredictable. It is hard to figure out what is going on in there and how a lot of things work within it. But also, it's one IKEA. They know where it is, and they just make sure people don't go in.
Right.
There's, of course, exceptions to what I just said, but like that's the idea of it. They can watch that IKEA and make sure no one goes in the fucking door. However, a different example is an amulet that is now one of the top researchers in the SCP Foundation, Jack Bright. That's an SCP. One of the top researchers is an SCP, and like we might get into what that is later because he as a character is a lot of fun to deal with, but like out of the scope of what we're talking about at the moment. But like that's kind of the idea of like it can be a lot of different things. Euclid is like realistically not the greatest term. Like it can just mean too many things. It's safe to assume that an SCP marked Euclid just might not fit into one of the other classifications perfectly. So this is just kind of a catch-all, is what I'm getting at with that.
Yep. So pretty much, if it's containable, but also you have to put effort into containing it, that's class Euclid. Anything beyond like easily containable is definitely, our next class is. It's like a catch-all.
Yes.
It's a wide cast net to get everything that isn't, secured, and everything that isn't requiring lots of effort to be secured.
Exactly. Now we'll move into the third, and the, as I kind of said, the end of the like really common important ones to know when you're looking at SCPs, which is Keter. Now this is exceedingly difficult to contain. Containment procedures are extensive and complex, and a lot of times the Foundation simply can't contain them, but they are known. They are poorly understood, but they are known, and like things keep escaping, or just like there are SCPs that are too big to contain. I don't believe I have it in this, but it is one that I want to talk about because it is one of my one of the ones that I find most interesting, but we'll talk about it on another date. It's a big sea monster that's like the size of a continent. You kind of just can't fucking contain a continent, so like that's another option for that. And as I said, similar to safe, it does not mean that it's dangerous. It just means it's difficult to contain. And my examples here, as I've mentioned already, SCP-682. This one needs to be the difficult to kill lizard, needs to be constantly suspended in a vat of acid to make sure it doesn't escape and just fucking kill everything. The acid is constantly cycling out, as well as, I believe, a number of other things that go into that. So, like, that's pretty fucking difficult. There's a lot of things, and if it breaks out, it kills everything. I shouldn't even say that, because that's bringing danger into it. But that's a lot of things to go into it. On the other hand, SCP-055 is just genuinely an unknowable thing. There is a researcher that goes in, spends like 4 hours talking with and documenting it, and comes out with like a sheet of notes that just mean absolutely nothing. It is technically contained, but there is literally zero information on it. That is, it's a memetic SCP, so it alters your memory and like fucks with it. So like, they don't know how to contain it, but like we're pretty sure it's contained. We think it is.
I'm actually familiar with this one. This one is
okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Foundation is just like generally okay with the fact that they at least know where it is, or like it's sort of like a Schrodinger's cat thing. Like it's definitely within the room, because if it wasn't in the room, or whatever they contain it in, they would know. But because they come out and they don't know if it's in the room, it's probably in the room. Probably.
Our next class, getting into the kind of more specialized ones, even I only have like a couple bullet points on these. We have Thaumiel, and these are SCPs used to contain other SCPs. These ones are highly classified, hence matching the terminology, and they are realistically only known to the O5 Council. Next is Neutralized. As one would expect, these are SCPs that are no longer anomalous. They, for whatever reason, have no longer have their anomalous powers or whatever it was that was making them an anomaly. Now they're just a normal thing, but they were an SCP, so now they're neutralized. Next is Apollyon. These are SCPs as well that cannot be contained. These, unlike, because I kind of mentioned one of those in Keter, these are more often related to things that are going to end the world, and what I will explain later is a K-class scenario. These require a massive effort for the Foundation to deal with at all, like in any way, shape, or form. These are gonna end the fucking world. These are those ones that we were talking about. And the final one that I will mention is Archon. These are SCPs that could be contained, but for whatever reason, they have been best left uncontained. They have been deemed that it is safer to leave them uncontained by the Foundation than it would be to have them in containment. Class?
Let's see. Let me go over this again. I think we touched on like the important three. I think a lot of the thaumiel and like highly classified stuff is used to tell like the overall story of
Yes.
SCP, of like the big actors and like the big characters and the big SCPs. So for somebody that's just gonna like go and start reading SCPs, probably won't come up.
Yeah, it's not something you're gonna need to know until you're like diving into it a little deeper, and it's something that you've already decided that you want to know about.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So the Archon classification, it has like the parallels to the Archon. I think in Greek means ruler. It's often used to show something good, something lawful.
Yeah.
So that the fact that they are best left uncontained sort of makes sense because they are anomalies or something that has good intention. Apollyon obviously is another one of those things that's like either an Apollyon class SCP is either part of a huge story, a huge SCP submission, or it's just like, yeah, there's like, let's say, SCP-682 would actually kill everything if it got out of the vat of acid. Yeah, it's either like offhandedly an Apollyon class and will end the world eventually, or it's like used for the story. It's kind of weird to say story considering what SCP is, but there are big story beats and like big important SCPs that are generally accepted as I guess like timeline one. Like these are
Correct.
the things that have happened.
Yeah, I'd say two of them that one of them I for sure want to talk about, just to like kind of touch on it, is one of the contenders for SCP-001 When Day Breaks, which like I'm not going to get into it now, but like that is like a world altering event where like people then theorize what all of the SCPs would do in this basically new world. Another one that I believe is also SCP-001 contender is just the Ouroboros cycle of how the SCP Foundation comes to be. That one's intense, and that one is like a very collaboratively written, massive, like 50-60 storyline that like in theory I would love to tackle, but like holy shit, it's actually so much. Like even the video cliff notes is like a 3-hour video. Like it's a lot to fucking take in, and like to dumb it down to the level that we need to understand it would be like rough.
It would be rough and a disservice.
Exactly, yeah. We just like couldn't give it the quality that we would really want to be able to give it. Also, saying that, is that the same SCP-001 that you're into, When Day Breaks?
I don't think so.
Damn, that's a shame.
I'm pretty sure it's classified as SCP-001. And I think it's a meme, but
Fair.
I know of the prototype, which is very dangerous SCP, but I thought that SCP-001, or one of the ones that is classified as SCP-001, is like a super meta SCP that's just a stack of paper that anytime a new SCP is submitted to the SCP wiki, or wherever these SCPs are being written, it like actually fills out what is written, and the Foundation now has that SCP as. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does. I have not heard that one, but now I want to
I think it might be called the printer.
Sounds... I think I might know that one. Same. Yeah, that one is fun. Yeah, this one, I've already mentioned 682 a couple times, so like I'm actually now going to give like kind of a breakdown of what it is realistically. As I've already said, you can please tell me if you disagree. I would say this is probably the most well-known and recognizable SCP, bare minimum like top 3. Like,
it's hard to
one.
Yeah, it's hard to really like capture how well known an SCP is, just in general. But like a lot of SCP content that's out there will refer to this one as sort of like this is like an offhand quirky one, because it's like.
Because it kind of is.
It's just funny. It's just an unkillable lizard.
Yeah. The only one that I would put up there with the contender for like most known is 173, and that's only really because that was the poster child for containment breach. So 682, as I've said, is known as the hard to destroy reptile, which is, as it sounds, a very large, somewhat undead looking reptilian creature that is quite literally impossible to destroy. It is extremely intelligent, capable of complex communication, and absolutely hates all forms of life and would very much like to kill it, every single bit of it. Now, its anomalous powers simply allow it to adapt to any form of harm it may encounter, and very quickly. The Foundation has dedicated countless lives and just piles and piles of funding into attempting to kill this lizard to absolutely no avail. Because there is, when I looked on the SCP wiki, there is under SCP-682, there is a termination log where this has the log of all of the Foundation's attempts to kill 682. And it is just shy of 25,000 words. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of the times that I think are pretty fun, because it's simply too much to get into, obviously.
And for those that don't know, the language used in SCP is, while like, I guess scientific and very like official wording, it's still very brief and to the point. So 25,000 words is that's a lot, and it's not. I mean, me and you, when we talk, we ramble and use a lot of adjectives and stuff. SCP, just as a format, does not tend to do that. So for there to be 25,000 words, there are
correct. For just a brief contextual, this isn't the best example, but for like a brief context, this episode, I'm guessing from where we're at the moment, is going to be a little over an hour long. My notes for this episode were just over 3,000 words.
Yeah.
And this one was 25,000. So, like, it's a lot. There are thousands and thousands of attempts to kill this thing. But moving forward, while it's not something I believe I've mentioned on the podcast, this is not normally a power level that I can get myself into. Normally when things get like this absurd, I just tune out. Like, we've talked a little bit about anime power levels just getting out of hand, and then when everyone has the ability to end the world, I lose interest because there are no real stakes anymore. So something that is, air quotes, perfect and borderline unharmable would normally just make me not care at all. Because it's an SCP, because of the format that SCP is, I can just kind of look past it and just find it funny. And a lot of that is because some of the attempts are just so fucking unhinged that, like, I go into it, like, expecting how they're gonna do something and how they're gonna do it, and then it just gets turned completely on its fucking head. And, like, most of these, the method, like, seems like it's gonna work. It is honestly kind of like an anime where it's like, it seems like it's gonna work. They've destroyed 87% of its body mass, and then it just adapts and, like, fucking comes back and does whatever and is just totally fine again. For example, on that one, it was put into a room with SCP-743, which is a chocolate fountain that, if anything consumes the chocolate held within it, a swarm of omnivorous insects emerges and consumes that thing. You know, normal shit. Makes perfect sense. How you do. And after eating that, after 682 ate some of the ants, they came out and consumed 21% of its body weight, until 682 evolved an anteater tongue and just, like, started fucking eating them. And then they just were eating each other constantly in an unending cycle for a number of days until the SCP Foundation just went, okay, that's enough, I guess. This isn't working, and then just separated them. Like, that's it. Like, that's all it is. And, like, that's the kind of, like, weird kill logs that this is getting. Like, I'd get into more of them, but then I would have to explain more and more and more SCPs. That's what we're trying to avoid in this episode, but, like, that's the kind of just unhinged goddamn bullshit that 682 is.
Now, I will say, this is a good example of how deep you can go, because when reading about 682, a very interesting SCP, you come across 743, which is a chocolate fountain that eats things.
Yes.
And so you're like, okay, I'm going to go read that page. And there's probably some mentions of either characters or other SCPs that are like, all right, I'm going to go read that page. And then it's like 3 a.m. and you're like, shit, I got to work tomorrow.
You're right. When I was writing this, I didn't even think of that. That is a very good representation of the rabbit hole that is SCP. Yeah, you're just like, oh yeah, well, I already know about the lizard, so this is cool. Oh, they did that? Oh, fuck, let me read that. Like, that is a very, very apt analogy of how you get into this whole thing. And the 743 one is, like, a pretty mild example, but, like, as you can imagine, in 25,000 words, there's a lot to unpack. And as I said, the normal containment for 682 is just being housed in a vat of incredibly strong acid so that its normal regenerative properties cannot work on an adaptation, and they simply have to maintain itself rather than being able to adapt to the acid that it is within. Like, if you're burning 50% of the body in the hour and it needs 2 hours to adapt to something, which is not an accurate timeline, but, like, for example, by 2 hours you would lose 100% of your body, so it wouldn't fucking matter. So it literally is just in a constant state of regenerating itself and maintaining stasis while in this acid. Still totally sentient of everything. Like, it kind of makes sense why it fucking hates everything, but it also hated everything before the SCP Foundation. So, like, it's just kind of a lot when it comes down to it. But that's the hard to kill lizard.
Right. And just to reiterate, that's a object class Keter.
Correct.
And that's because, you know, like we went over, it's going to figure out a way to stop the containment eventually. Exactly.
And, like, I can't imagine that acid is cheap. Moving on, SCP-343. this is object class safe. Now, this, to me, this is a classic. But I don't know how, like, well known and well liked this one is within the community. This is one that the first time I saw it, when I was like really first getting into SCP, because like I like the absurdity, I like the just batshit crazy stuff. This is the first one that I saw that literally made me go, okay, fuck you, this is dumb now. I'm done with SCP, before I actually learned about it. SCP-343, if you don't know, is God. So when you're looking at YouTube titles, it's just SCP-343, God. And I'm like, fuck you. We're just pulling the Christian deity as an SCP. Like, this isn't even fun anymore. Like, what the fuck? This is just boring at this point. That is not what SCP-343 is. Or maybe it is. Who's really to say? What we know is that he certainly claims to be. But what he does is he kind of just does as he pleases. He is, actually, I shouldn't even really say he. When I was writing these notes, I was going to say he is, he looks like what we would think of as the traditional Christian God, old man, white beard, that type of thing. But as I was re-looking into it, he appears as kind of whatever that person thinks of as God. So what it might be to me might look very different to you.
Right, yeah.
Now, he is, air quotes, held by the Foundation. But this is more of a, he accepts it and kind of doesn't mind being contained, as it means he just gets to talk to people and has people to be around. He doesn't really have to follow any of the rules of reality, that thing we call reality. Simply warping to where he wants. When he was discovered, I believe in South America, according to most of the things, where someone saw him on the ground, blinked, looked up, and he was on a rooftop, blinked, looked over, and he was in a windowsill. So he just kind of does what he wants. He's just phases through walls. During an interview at one point, he was just like, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get a burger. And just walked through the fucking wall. Everyone went into high security. This fucking guy just disappeared. Then like 5 minutes later, he just came back, walked through the wall, sat down with a burger, and started eating it. Went, hey, sorry about that. I was just hungry. So he can kind of just do whatever the fuck he wants. He's realistically more of an asset to the Foundation in the ways that, like, he clearly has a very large wealth of knowledge of, like, things that you would think would be impossible to know unless you had some degree of omnipotence. So the real question is he actually God? Does he control things? What is he here for? The answer is, who fucking knows? But it's pretty fucking fun, and, like, that's what I'm here for. That kind of wild-ass, wacky shit. Like, that... What the fuck is this man? It's great. I love it. That's all I got for him. Like, I love it.
Yeah, there's, like, that, like, pseudo-philosophical question of, like, wouldn't God be lonely, being somebody who's omnipotent and all-powerful?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, is it really even worth asking yourself that question? But that's sort of like, you can sort of see that that's sort of the idea behind SCP-343, is that it's just like an omnipotent, all-powerful being that just is so lonely, and just
he just wants to
talk
to people.
He wants company.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. And it's like, okay, that's kind of, it's another one where it's like, you know, kind of like a little quirky.
It's just a little quirky. Exactly.
A little quirky. Like, it's a little funny.
Staff members on break just, like, go and talk with him. And every time they talk with him, they report their mood being raised and they feel better.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah, just
It's
chatting
just like a
with
little
God today
quirky.
at work.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what else are you gonna do?
But yeah, so SCP-343 is just like a fun sort of uh, interpretation of like object class safe. Uh,
Mm,
it's just like,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's contained. How is it contained? Well, he doesn't want to
Because he
leave.
wants to. He just doesn't want to leave, so he's safe. Yeah. And
He can
even
do
when he
whatever he
leaves,
wants.
it's fine. He doesn't do anything bad, so like whatever. Who cares? And then to round up our three main containment classes, I will go back to SCP 3008, object class Euclid. This, as I said, is the Infinite IKEA. Another one that I feel like is pretty decently well known. Obviously, being like a big real name brand, like it has some kind of recognition. I'm sure if you get deep enough into Google results, when you Google IKEA, Infinite IKEA probably fucking comes up at some point. So what this one is, it looks to be a standard IKEA store, but through laser range finding and reports of those who escape, it seems to be infinite, as one would probably guess by the name. This anomaly actually has a host of civilians trapped inside of it due to the nature of them getting lost in just an absolutely maze-like structure. It just kind of goes on and on and on. Reports consist of them even building rudimentary civilizations within there, within the anomaly, to be able to defend from the natural inhabitants, which, of course, are human-like employees with rather strange, like, long-limbed proportions and, like, kind of, like, smoothed over, like, almost, I don't want to say doll faces, but, like, no real features, but, like, a big mouth type of thing. And they're dressed as IKEA employees. And during the day, they're kind of just wandering, not doing much. They're kind of up to whatever. But during the night, they become incredibly violent to anyone within the store that is not an employee, with cries of, "This store is now closed. Please exit the building." Until they just beat you to death and rip you limb from limb for being within the building because you can't get out.
All right. To be fair, they are working a retail job and people are staying past closed. So
You can't be having that. That's against the rules. You'll get fired for that. Like, that's not okay. Like, get out of the store.
I'm taking the employee's side on this one. If you're in there past closing time, I have wanted to rip people's arms off their body and bludgeon them to death with them. So
100%. So this SCP is obviously pretty vague in like a lot of the things that I just said. A lot of the things from this, there is a whole series of videos of like an I survived 100 days with an SCP-3008 and like a story made about that. So like the SCP wiki entry is not quite as detailed, but like that one is rife for just like so many stories of all the SCPs. I hope I'm not calling you out on this one when you said you wanted to run something. This is the one that I personally have considered running some kind of a TTRPG within it. Because there is
not
so
consider this one.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not accidentally like calling you out with that one, because like that's such an interesting thing. A lot of the things are like because it's anomalous. All of the food in the food courts refills every day, so like you build a civilization around the food court because that's where the food is, and it's a limitless supply of food, so you're not gonna run out, but you're still fucking stuck in an IKEA. So like there's just so many things you can do with it, so many different angles you could tackle something like that from, and I think it would be very fun to run a tabletop game within that. I just like there's so many things, and then the villain is just a rival fucking gang leader, or I mean like, you know,
Somebody
the end goal
else
is probably
trapped
escaping.
Yes,
but
yeah.
so like it's one of the like, oh yeah, it's a normal place, it's an IKEA, but like don't fucking get lost.
Right.
Just don't do it. Like, very fun. I think that would be. That's just a very cool SCP, just to like the- theory craft, I guess, for lack of a better word, realistically. And finally, the last thing that I have for you to wrap up is just a couple of like kind of important jargon terms and like other concepts that like these are the things that are like unique to SCP and like you're not necessarily going to know what it is going in. This is like I only have 3 things here. Like this is going to be very brief, but it's just like a couple things very quickly so you don't have to Google it yourself. You'll at least have like a baseline understanding of it. As I mentioned before, the first one is K class. This is a hypothetical scenario and that is hypothetical within the world of SCP, that would have a drastic effect on normality or reality up to and including the end of the world. For a very, very brief example, because as I said, it's one that I might do like a whole episode on or like a mini thing on it, is when day breaks. When day breaks, the idea of it is at some point the sun turns and becomes harmful to all living matter on Earth. When you're out in the sun, all of your skin and organs simply begin to melt off of your body into piles of goo, and those piles of goo form other sentient beings by binding together with other piles of goo. That is an end of the world extinction event. That is a K-class scenario. It is something that they know could possibly happen, and they have plans and contingencies on how to make sure that doesn't happen. That is a K-class scenario. In essence, these are, as I said, contingency guides for the Foundation on what they would do should this thing happen. The next one, very brief, is an amnestic. This is simply a drug given to induce memory loss. You can straight up think of it as the flashy thing from fucking Men in Black. You saw something you weren't supposed to, boom, amnestic. No, you fucking didn't. You didn't see that at all. Pretty simple. Like there, as I said, there are different strengths of them, and a different SCP that I want to talk about is where we find them, because that's obviously not a drug that just fucking exists in the real world. So I'm not going to go into that right now, but the idea of an amnestic is fucking going to come up if you listen to SCP lore. It's just going to. So it's good to know that one. Unless you have anything else to tell the good people about, that's our SCP breakdown. That's hopefully a somewhat decent once-over of the world of SCP, and hopefully if you enjoyed this, you'll be able to go further and find out more about it yourself and learn more about some other fun, kind of quirky boys.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I originally said that my favorite SCP-001 theory is that it's a printer. I was mistaken. It is simply titled a simple sheaf of papers, and it's just stapled together papers that just seems to get bigger and bigger. But yeah, well, you know, I think it would be good to have a couple of episodes that are brief descriptions of some, and I think we should maybe do one just on SCP-001 and which ones we like that are
for sure
titled SCP-001s, because you want to do When Day Breaks.
Yep.
I really like the prototype, and we should probably give the Gate Guardian a little bit more of a description and read through, and then of course I want to talk about a sheaf of papers. So
I mean, you gotta talk about that sheet of papers, though.
This is why SCP is so great, is it's just like, so what are we even talking about here? We're talking about a sheaf of papers that is containment class Keter, and it's to give a brief description, it's a briefcase that contains it on a shelf that's monitored by security cameras at all times, and the briefcase cannot be opened without unanimous special clearance from all current O5 officers. So the entirety of the, like, I guess, council that overrules all of the Foundation has to agree. Yeah, let's open up the briefcase that has a sheaf of papers in it.
Yep.
That's one of my favorites. So I think we should maybe do a breakdown of all of them, but we'll see what happens going forward.
But yeah, that whenever you're listening to this, I hope you have a good rest of your day or night, and that will be us signing off for now. Maybe the next episode will be in 6 months. Maybe it'll be next week. Who knows?
Maybe there won't be one. Maybe, fuck you.
Maybe we're SCP-001. Who's to fucking say?
No, I'm just saying we're SCP-001.
We are SCP-001. The Bad Tutors Podcast, SCP-001. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, tell your friends.
Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell everyone. And have a great day.
See you later.